Rev up your engines!
Finally, people are telling the truth. The RV industry is scrambling for survival. It's going down the toilet. Now, for a lot of times, people were saying, oh, business is great. Yeah, what do you think the RV guys who are selling them are going to say? They're going to say, hey, nobody wants these stupid things. They're going to say, oh, it's great, it's great, it's great. Well, that didn't jive with what I saw in the real world. Every time I'd go between Tennessee and Rhode Island and back, I'd go by a bunch of RV places. And you know what I see? Fields of unsold RVs and campers sitting there. Nobody's buying the things. I'll give you a perfect example. RV shipments for the first quarter of 2023 are down 52.1%. No, I'm not making this up. 52.1. They have lost more than half of their sales. They're down that bad. People are finding out, hey, these things are tremendous gas hogs, and they try to sell you this myth that, oh, you're out in the woods all free. No, you aren't. You got to park that thing where everybody else is, in the RV parking place. You can't park it in the middle of nowhere. Nobody wants you parking their thing on their property. The government doesn't want you parking it on the national parks unless it's in the campground, right? So the myth of freedom is dispelled. But one of the biggest things is, and I'll tell you, I've seen it from people bringing me RVs. And they say, Scotty, look at this. This RV is a year and a half old. It's falling apart already. They build them like crap. They couldn't get labor during coronavirus. They would hire anybody to build it. A guy brought me one in Tennessee. It was a year and a half old. The flooring had been coming off. The siding was becoming unglued from the side of the RV. He had to switch to good tires because it came with crappy Chinese tires, and he switched them out to good American tires. Hey, they're charging all this money for crappy things. It's no wonder their sales are down 52.1% the first quarter of 2023 versus the first quarter of 2022. You lose that much in sales, there's a problem. And I knew it. They're always trying to hide it, right? But I knew it because every time I drive from Tennessee to Rhode Island, I'd see mounds of these things parked in fields. Nobody's buying them. They're just sitting there. So it's kind of obvious that nobody's buying the things. And with the price of gas being up, you get horrible gas mileage in those things. They're not even cheap anymore. These little, just the pull-along camper trailers. And so what'd you pay for that? So it's 25 grand, like 25,000 bucks for that little tiny thing. You know how many motel rooms you can rent for that? Probably a lifetime, right? And then you get to sleep on a regular bed, not cramped into a little thing, getting horrible gas mileage while you're driving down the road. Joe H0635 says, I have electronic issues in my morning car drive. I got an '06 Dodge Grand Caravan. I try to start it starts at my dock. Now, in the morning, the windshield wipers, radio, side doors, hatch door, and instrument cluster lights do not work, but they work fine in the afternoon. Hell, the ignition switch. Now, when you turn your car on, the ignition switch powers everything. And the commonality of all the things that you say don't work is they all run off the ignition switch. Change your ignition switch, the electrical portion, because that's the part that wears out. You don't need to change the mechanical part, just the electrical switch part on the bottom. Anybody can do it. It's a simple job. Couple of screws holding in, right? I would start there. Now, if it's not that, whoo-wee, could be computer modules, wiring, it could be a rat's nest going through the system. But from my experience with those things, it's often just a simple electronic switch. The starter switch, the ignition switch assembly. Comes as an assembly, you unscrew it, you unplug all the wires, you plug them back in, put it back in, and away you go. Gracie Mac says, I got a pickup, it won't go into second gear. I got a Nissan pickup, 3-liter automatic, 205,000 miles. The fluid seems okay. It won't go into second gear. There's no check engine light on. I checked the box under the driver's seat, no check engine light or codes. How can I fix it? Thanks. Well, pray. You change the filter and fluid and that'll fix it. Pray it does. You also want to pray that maybe it's just a bad solenoid. If it's a bad solenoid, it might not go into that gear. But here's the problem. Normally, when you got a bad solenoid, it'll trip a code for a bad solenoid. Plug in a computer, it'll say, blah, blah, blah code, and you look it up, it'll say second gear solenoid, and you could drop the pan, change the filter and fluid, and change the solenoid while you were in there, right? But you say you got no code, so change the filter and fluid, and pray that fixes it, because if not, hey, it's a Nissan with 205,000 miles. Odds are the transmission's going to be needed overhauled, and it's a Nissan pickup. Going to cost you more money than that old pickup truck is worth. The Real Farbs say, I have a question. Whether or not a brand of engine oil you use makes a difference in gas mileage. I'm asking it because I saw a Mobil 1 0W20 oil that says advanced fuel economy. Thanks. What makes your fuel economy is the viscosity, right? Yours is 0W20. It's not going to matter which 0W20 oil you buy because That's what gets the gas mileage. Those are light oils, 0W20. They also make 0W10 that's even thinner. The thinner the oil, the less internal resistance. It's thin oil. Thick oil has more resistance. You'll get worse gas mileage. That's one of the reasons a lot of the modern cars go for this thin oil. I see a lot of them burning oil now that didn't used to burn oil. When they had a heavier oil like a 20W30 or a 20W40, the thicker oils lubricated better. They wouldn't burn as much oil. The thinner the oil, the more opportunity you'll get wear because the oil isn't as thick. And so it's thinner, and if you're going real fast, you can have problems, right? But it doesn't matter which brand you buy, as long as it's that same viscosity, they'll all get the same gas mileage. Tony91 says, should I buy a new Nissan Frontier? What do you think of a 2023 Nissan Frontier with a 3.8-liter V6 and 9-speed automatic? Will they be a 200,000 mile like a Tacoma? Well, I'm not a big Nissan fan, but their Frontiers are decent pickup trucks. Here's the thing, though. It might last 200,000 miles. A Toyota generally lasts 300, 400, 500,000 miles. But they're not as well made as the Toyotas. Here's the thing. Look at the price of the Frontier versus the price of, say, the Toyota Tacoma. If there's very little difference, like $1,000 or $2,000 difference in the price, buy the Tacoma. If you're going to save a lot more money, $5,000, $10,000, go ahead. I get a lot of customers that buy vehicles other than Toyotas on price only. Like they'll say, well, I looked at the RAV4s, but they were $15,000 more than these Mazdas were, or than these Subarus were. So they buy a Mazda or a Subaru, and they're decent cars, right? You're saving an awful lot of money. But if the price is close, you might as well get the Toyota because they're better made. It's just common sense. I mean, when it's big money you're saving, hey, they're still good cars, right? If you're not going to save that much money, it makes no sense. I would buy the Toyota then. Personnel says, Scotty, what's your opinion on 2017 Toyota Estima van, a Japanese import? Okay, you're talking about importing a car from Japan. I don't advise doing that because I work on them, right? And if they're an American one, I can get parts and information very easily. The Japanese ones are slightly different. Sometimes you can't get parts for them. You can't get parts repair information for some of them. I know a lot of people that do that because they want an oddball car. And of course, the Japanese drive on the other side of the road like the Brits, so you'll have the steering wheel on the wrong side. Not a smart move to be driving a car in the United States with the steering wheel on the wrong side. Passing people is more dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing. I would not buy one. I mean, if you like the vehicle and you want to get it, it's your money. And they're well made, yes. But if you're going to have to get parts and people can't fix it, you can't get the parts, you're going to wish you didn't buy the thing. V-Shot says, how's a Honda 1.0-liter turbo versus the VW 1.0-liter turbo? Well, I'll tell you, if I was buying one, I'd buy the Honda for two reasons. Honda makes the best engines in the world, and Honda makes pretty good cars. They're second only to Toyota, right? Volkswagen, they make some pretty crappy cars, and it's a 1-liter turbo. I would not buy a Volkswagen 1-liter turbo. I wouldn't buy any Volkswagen, and I would buy quite a few Hondas. I personally wouldn't buy a 1-liter turbo, a little engine with a turbo. It is going to wear out fast. So I was going to buy a Honda. I would probably get a Honda 2-liter non-turbo, and they run perfectly fine and go as long as you want to go. The small engines, they're too small for American roads. Now, like if you're in Singapore or someplace, you got a little car, fine. People don't go far. The island's kind of small, right? But in the United States, little engines like that don't cut the mustard on interstate highway travel. She says, why don't the American car companies just spend extra money on quality instead of shelling out more money, fixing their crap and getting a bad rep? Because that's the American way. Form, little function. What does it look like? Oh, look, it can wipe your butt too, and it can shine your shoes. No, you look at a company like Toyota, classic Japanese company. Started with little crappy cars, started making better. Keep improving. If electric cars ever become popular for other than just rich people, Toyota's starting to get into it. Maybe decades from now, they'll make excellent electric cars, right? If you had to get an electric car, I'd get an electric Toyota. But I'd wait until they've been out a while to see if they work, right? But the American companies, all they care about is one thing, and that's the bottom line. How much money can we make for the next 3 months so our stock will go up? That's all they care about. They want to cut the quality. They're trying to pay their workers less and less. Look, they're moving half their jobs down to Mexico, where Chevy pays factory workers $6.85 for a 12-hour workday. Not $87 an hour. For 12 hours, they get $6.87. Do you think the quality's going to go up? Of course not. That's why they have so many problems, you know? It's sad, but it's true. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.